You know, when we think of US presidents, we usually picture these serious, stoic figures from portraits or history books. But behind that big desk in the Oval Office, some of these leaders were, well, let's just say they were delightfully strange. And today, we're going to pull back that curtain and look at some of their weirdest secrets.
I mean, really, stop and think about it for a second. Beyond all the bill signing and the speeches, what is the most bizarre, totally unexpected thing a commander-in-chief has ever actually done? You might be thinking of some weird hobby or maybe a strange food they liked, but I'm willing to bet you're not even close.
Yeah, I bet you weren't thinking of this. We're talking about a live alligator just living in a bathroom in the East Room of the White House. And believe it or not, that's just where we're getting started. All right, so let's dive into what was basically the White House's unofficial zoo. Because it turns out presidential pets have gone way, way beyond a couple of dogs and cats. We're talking about a full-on menagerie here that would probably make most zookeepers a little nervous. I'm telling you, the White House has seen everything. Calvin Coolidge had a pet raccoon named Rebecca that he would actually walk around the grounds on a leash. Thomas Jefferson, he let his mockingbirds fly free in his office and would feed them from his own mouth. Martin Van Buren was gifted 2 tiger cubs. Congress eventually made him send them to a zoo, but still. And during World War I, Woodrow Wilson brought in a whole flock of sheep to mow the lawn, to save on manpower. But none of them, not one, compares to that alligator. And this is where the story gets even better, because it says so much about the man himself. John Quincy Adams got his gator from the famous French general, the Marquis de Lafayette. He kept it in a bathtub, and, as the story goes, he absolutely loved showing it off to unsuspecting guests just to scare the daylights out of them. A presidential prankster with a reptilian accomplice. You can't make this stuff up. But the presidential oddities weren't just limited to animals. Oh no. Beyond the menagerie, some of these leaders had skills and pastimes that are just mind-boggling. And we're not talking about simple hobbies. These were some seriously high-level talents that had nothing to do with their political lives. Okay, just look at this. Take James A. Garfield. As if being president wasn't already hard enough, the man was ambidextrous in the most ridiculously academic way you can imagine. He could literally write in ancient Greek with one hand, while at the exact same time writing in Latin with the other. It's a wild feat of mental gymnastics that sounds like a legend, but by all accounts, it was totally true. And then you've got Andrew Johnson. So before he got into politics, his job was being a tailor. But get this, he never gave it up. Even as the President of the United States, Johnson kept making his own suits. It's a level of hands-on craftsmanship that is just almost unthinkable for a world leader today. And look, this wasn't just some casual hobby. Johnson was a master of his craft. He handled every single step himself, from taking the measurements to the final hand stitching, and he would proudly wear his own creations to official state functions. In fact, they say he only ever wore suits he had made himself. Okay, so we've had weird pets and hidden talents, but now things take a much more dramatic turn. We're shifting from peculiar skills to stories of sheer unbelievable survival. For some presidents, the biggest oddity is just the fact that they managed to stay alive through things that would have taken down pretty much anyone else. 2. What do you think this number represents? It's not the number of terms they served. It's the number of bullets that Theodore Roosevelt carried around in his body from 2 separate shootings, one of which happened while he was campaigning for president. And that brings us to this absolutely legendary quote. So in 1912, while on the campaign trail, an assassin shoots him right in the chest, but the bullet was slowed down by his thick coat and a 50-page speech he had folded in his pocket. So what does he do? Instead of rushing to a hospital, Roosevelt insists on delivering his speech. He spoke for over an hour with a bullet lodged in his chest, famously telling the crowd, "It takes more than that to kill a bull moose." Just incredible. But when it comes to cheating death, Andrew Jackson might just be in a league of his own. This timeline is basically a highlight reel of his near-death experiences. The guy was in so many duels, one of them left a bullet so close to his heart that doctors couldn't ever safely remove it. So he just lived with it. Then, in 1835, he survives the very first presidential assassination attempt. When the attacker's pistol misfired, Jackson, who was 67 years old by the way, charged the guy and started beating him with his cane. The assailant's second pistol also misfired. The odds of that happening were later calculated at 1 in 125,000. So, what does all of this tell us? The weird pets, the bizarre skills, the unbelievable brushes with death. They remind us that these historical figures were so much more than just those stoic faces you see on money. They were quirky, they were tough, and they were profoundly human people who lived extraordinary and often very, very strange lives. And that really makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we're watching history being made right now, what are the little peculiar details of today's leaders that are going to become the legendary stories of tomorrow? What's going to be their alligator in the bathtub? It's something to think about.